So welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Nina Ha, and I am the director of the APIDA Center. And this is the last week of APIDA Heritage Month. So I'm really excited to feature and introduce the undergrad students in our InspirASIAN series. It's always bittersweet because the undergrads are graduating and I've known many of them for a long time. So I'm very excited to introduce you. But before we get started, I just wanted to begin with the land and labor acknowledgement. So Virginia Tech acknowledges that we live and work on the Tudalo and Monacan people's homeland, and we recognize their continued relationships with their lands and waterways. We further acknowledge that the Morrill Land Grant College Act of 1862 enabled the Commonwealth of Virginia to finance and found Virginia Tech through the forced removal of Native nations from their lands in California and other areas in the West. Virginia Tech acknowledges that its Blacksburg campus sits partly on land that was previously the site of the Smithfield and Solitude plantations owned by members of the Preston family. Between the 1770s and the 1860s, the Prestons and other local white families that owned parcels of what became Virginia Tech also owned hundreds of enslaved people. Enslaved Black people generated resources that financed Virginia Tech's predecessor institution, the Preston and Olin Institute, and they also worked on the construction of its building. So without further ado, as I said before, this is the InspirASIAN series, and basically we do this actually every April to feature our graduating undergraduates, and I'm very excited to have with us so far, let's see, Ruby Castillo, Jane Park, Temujin, and I'm gonna butcher your last name, so.
You can.
I thought you were gonna say it.
Yes.
Oh, Teujelsaren.
Thank you. And then Sharon Patznick is online, as well as Eugenia Yee. And we will go in that order, if that's okay. So
Oh, darn it. Wait. Okay, I guess so.
So if you could just introduce yourselves, your pronouns, your major and minor, and maybe one fun fact about you.
Oh, God. Okay. Hi, is this how it's pointed?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Hi, I'm Ruby Lancastillo, but I go by Ruby. I use she, her pronouns. I'll be graduating next week, thank God, with a BS in food science and technology, with a concentration in business, and then also a business minor. Fun fact, I'm actually a certified martial arts teacher. I got my official certification last year. So I'm kind of considered like a 5th degree black belt. So keep me happy, guys.
I'm Jane, and I am a double major in English literature and political science. And fun fact, oh, my pronouns are she, her, and fun fact, I actually used to work for the APIDA Plus Center. I used to work for the APIDA Plus Center, and I actually organized last year's undergrad panel.
Hi, everyone, my name is Temujin Teujelsaren. I use he, him pronouns. My major is political science with a concentration in national security. And fun fact, I've never broken a bone, if that counts.
It's getting strong.
Sharon? Sharon?
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute. Hi, my name's Sharon. I use she, her pronouns, and my major is applied economics with a concentration in international trade and development. And I have 2 minors, one in women and gender studies and the other in global food and health security. And a fun fact about me is that I don't know what's a fun fact. Triple Taurus. Oh, yeah, I'm a triple Taurus. It's a fun fact.
Thank you. Eugenia?
Yeah, hi guys. My name is Eugenia Yee. I go by she, her, hers pronouns. I'm graduating with a BS in psychology next week. And a fun fact about me, um, I would say I work at Our Daily Bread down on North Main, and I've been working there for about like close to 2 years now. That's my fun fact.
Thank you. Thank you. So when the others come in, we'll do that round for them too. So I asked the participants to just share a little bit more about themselves. And I know Ruby has a PowerPoint, so I am.
That I definitely sent you
Yes,
early
yes, we did.
and on time.
So I will.
And I will be reading from my phone because I don't know what I put in there. So.
make sure that I can. Okay, can everyone see that? Okay. And just tell me to switch slides when.
Okay, cool. So, like I said before, my name is Ruby Lynn Castillo. That is me on on my slide. I'm not the dog, just to clarify. But yeah, we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So I guess kind of a recap of what I just said. You, she, her pronouns. I'll be graduating with a degree in food science and technology and a business minor next week. I am a native of Norfolk, Virginia. So I guess born and raised there. So very fun. And I am Filipino American. So that's a very fun thing. We can go to the next slide. Oh, this is really cringy, but
Sorry,
you're good.
Okay.
So I actually started out as a cadet here. People either know that about me because I won't shut up about it, or they're like, you were a cadet, and then after that I won't shut up about it. So yeah, I was gonna go into the Air Force when I originally came to tech in 2018. But I got medically DQ'd because I had a heat stroke in the middle of new cadet week, and then also they were like, you're on antidepressants, so you can't be in the military. And I was like, well, why didn't you tell me that before? Because then I would have gotten heat stroke. But yeah. Anyway, I also started as a computer engineer and I did not like it. It was something I did throughout high school. I was in an engineering program and I was really, really good at computer science in high school specifically, not anymore. But I definitely suffered from like a lot of burnout from that. And my GPA definitely agreed with that. So in 2020, when I was a junior, I actually switched over to FSD, and that's where I've stuck since. Thank God I could not take another major change. So I could not afford another major change. So next slide. So, oh wait, you're good. You got it. You got it. Sorry. Wait, there's a slide before this.
Now, trying to get to it.
Oh, you got it.
There it
Let's
is.
go. Okay. So when it comes to things that I've done at Virginia Tech, sorry, I looked at the font and it looked like a BT and did I misspell BT? That was so sad. But I've been an officer for AASU for the past, oh my God, 3 years. I started as service and philanthropy chair in 2021. Yeah, in 2021, and then in 2022, I switched over to education and advocacy and became part of the fellows committee when it was still a committee and not one person. It was still one person, there was no one else with me, but yeah. And then I transferred over to being just the fellow this past year. So that was super fun. Thankfully, I retired last week. So I no longer have to go to meetings, and also I'm done being responsible for it. It's someone else's problem now. Anyway, I'm also in the Taekwondo club. I started in 2021, so the same time I joined AASU. I joined the demonstration team in 2022. Thankfully, I'm retired from that now. And I also served as the PR chair and the tournament coordinator this past academic year. I'm also in the Chinese American Society, CAS. I don't really do anything in the fall semester, but in the spring semester, we'll have culture shows, and that's where I do things. We actually had our culture show yesterday. I'm the choreographer for lion dance and for wushu. And I've been doing that. I didn't put the years down because I've been doing it for too long, and I'm so happy to be done with it. But yeah. And then lastly, I also work at the Sustainable Environmental Research Laboratory under the Biological Systems Engineering Department. And I do part-time research there. Basically, I make vegan fish food. Said that's awesome. Sure, it's really cool. It actually ends up going back to the cooperative extension that's in Hampton. So I think it's really cool that I'm actually contributing to like my home, that's not my hometown, but like my home area, even while working here. So next slide. Now we're on the now we're on the really fun slide where I get to talk about all my issues. There are a lot. So after I basically flunked out of engineering. I had a really hard time figuring out what I was like gonna do with my life because I'd been like pigeonholed into engineering since like I was age 12. And like I said, in high school, I was really, really good at computer science. That was like what I was known for. And so like losing that in college was like devastating. So I was like, I had no idea what I was gonna do. And then I switched to food science and now I'm like not depressed anymore. So that's cool. So I also attempted like cold turkey quitting antidepressants because I was like, dang, I can't go into the military. Let's just stop taking them. Don't do that, guys. So I am on them again. So I'm doing fine. I also after I just the timing was really bad when I dropped out of engineering because it was 2020. So not only am I dropping out of engineering. Now it's COVID, so I have like no friends. And I didn't know anybody in food science because everything was online. And I'm like, I'm not going outside. I'm not getting sick because I was so responsible as I'm a responsible adult. It's fine. And then this past year, my grandfather passed away from cancer. That was really rough. But now this is gonna sound so I'm only making jokes so I don't cry, guys. But now I can kind of milk it and be like, hey guys, don't my grandpa died of cancer, so don't be mean to me. But also recently my grandmother also had a stroke literally last week. I'll actually be moving in with her this summer to help take care of her. So that's gonna be a really fun time. I can barely take care of myself. We're gonna see what happens there. Hopefully my family will be like, yes, Ruby can do it. We trust her. And hopefully I'm like, yes, I can do it. I trust myself. We'll see what happens. But yeah. And so the next slide, a couple of plans I have in the future other than living with my grandmother. You're good.
We've just been acting up all day.
It's good.
Okay.
Cool. So if you didn't notice, I started in 2018, but I didn't join anything until 2021. That was too long. So be willing to like meet people. They're not all terrible, guys. Like it's okay to like jump into something really fast. Yeah, when I joined the AASU board, it was a really quick transition from doing absolutely nothing to doing absolutely everything. So it's like okay to be willing to take that kind of risk. Another piece of advice is that everybody has imposter syndrome. It is not just you. So the best thing I found was to surround myself with other people with imposter syndrome, and we can all trauma bond together. But at the same time, we're all like lifting each other up. So that's like the best way. That was the best way for me to cope with it. If we're all suffering together, then we're all like, no, you're actually really cool. And they're like, no, you're good. You're good. Like it was so positive. I loved being in that kind of environment. My other piece of advice is do not quit your meds cold turkey. It's a bad idea. Don't do that. And then also just make sure you take the opportunities that are presented to you like in stride. Like even if it's something that you're not entirely sure about doing, like it's something that I guess you don't know where that opportunity is going to lead you. When I first applied to AASU, which is really what was the turning point for me at Tech, someone had happened to drop out of the position that I was gonna that I took. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna do it. And then I did it, and I was like, I think I had a great interview, and I was like, wow, I feel really good that I made it in. I found out nobody else applied. So like take those like those opportunities are there. You just have to, go for them. Like it's not a bad idea to just try. And then lastly, I put this in all of my transition documents for AASU. I talked about AASU a lot because I do too much. But the way I say it is be annoying. Like sometimes people will not respond to you. You won't get what you want. And you're like, what am I supposed to do? Be as annoying as possible. Like follow. And sometimes I used to feel really bad. Like, oh, if I follow up now, like either the thing I'm pushy, like no, be pushy because that's how you're gonna get what you want. And that's what I've learned is if you want something to happen, you have to make it happen yourself. Okay, and then lastly, some future plans for myself. I'll be working at Smithfield Foods in Smithfield, Virginia, starting in July as an operations and continuous management or continuous improvement career foundations program associate. So it's like their rotational graduation or their rotational grad program. So super excited for that. So if you guys really want bacon, just like hit me up. Um, Also, I'll be an officer for COPWA. This is another thing where it's like, just take the opportunities in stride. I actually found this opportunity because it got posted on the APIDA Plus Center's Instagram. And I was like, man, screw it. Why not? I'll take one officer position. They gave me two. So I'll be the events coordinator and the curriculum design chair. So I think that's going to be really cool because I'll be able to infuse Filipino American history into like primary and like high schools. I'm like really excited to start doing that. Haven't done anything with it yet. We've had one meeting, but I'm sure I'll keep like Instagram and stuff posted because I will be busy again. But yeah, that's about it for me. I will not be taking criticism at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Whitney.
Yippee.
I appreciate that. Let's see. Sorry, trying to escape. My computer is constantly acting up, so apologies in advance. Jane, you're next. Yeah, before your slide. Just a second. Okay.
Hi everyone. I already introduced myself, but just to introduce myself again. So my name is Jane and I double major in English literature and science. And I graduate this spring. And I graduated high school at South Lakes High School in Reston, Virginia. So I'm from Nova, basically like everyone else at the school. But I consider myself to be from all over the place within Nova. I was born in Fairfax, I was raised in McLean, and I now live in Falls Church with my older sister. But I've always just kind of been around in the Tysons area. And here at Tech, I was actually a former programming assistant at the APIDA Plus Center. When I started, it was actually known as the ACE Center. And I stopped working here earlier at the beginning of the semester. I'm also currently the news editor for the Collegiate Times, but I've been kind of in the transition process of being of kind of bringing on new editors because I'm graduating. And for career aspirations, I do want to be involved in something political. For a long time, I thought I wanted to do journalism, and that still very much might be the case. But yeah, that's just what I'm interested in. That's what I see myself pursuing. Next. Okay, so for my presentation, I'm just kind of breaking down like all of those most impactful experiences I've had at Tech. But I actually started working at the APIDA Plus Center my sophomore year. And it was actually right in the middle of APIDA Heritage Month, so there's a lot going on. But out of everything I've done at the PETA Plus Center, probably the most impactful things I've done was the spotlight interviews and the learning lunches. The people I've interviewed that I remember the most is Teresa Wilson and Dr. Janine Joseph. And I say this because it wasn't just like a Q&A, but we actually had a real conversation, and they would ask things about myself. And I actually remember my interview with Teresa took almost like 2 hours because we just kept going back and forth. And also with learning lunches, I just threw that in there because I felt like it went hand in hand with spotlight interviews. But the ones that stood out most to me was the one with Viet Thanh Nguyen, who is the author of The Sympathizer, and Sophia Terazawa, who's actually a professor here. But yeah, the last three people I just found really impactful because I don't see many Asian Americans who aren't involved in STEM and do something more on the creative side, which is something I've always been interested in. And the second thing is always celebrating APIDAHM. When growing up, I wasn't really aware of the fact that there was even a month dedicated to us, and like my family never taught me anything about it. I was never taught about it in school. So I think it's really great that the PETA Plus Center really goes all out with it. And also the last point isn't really a program or event that impacted me, but if you regularly come to the events, you probably see that like the program assistants are always running all over the place, and sometimes things go wrong. And something that I've gotten better at while working here is staying calm in emergencies and trying to find solutions on the spot. So probably the next big thing in my college career was the Collegiate Times. If you guys don't know what that is, that's the student-run newspaper here. And it was actually the first organization I joined as a freshman because I immediately knew I wanted to get involved with a news publication. And during my 4 years here, I've probably written almost 100 stories. And my freshman year, I was a news writer. And then kind of going into my sophomore year, I became the assistant news editor. And then my junior and senior year, I've been the news editor. But yeah, I consider this a big part of my life because I learned not just journalistic skills, but also a lot of personal growth. I learned sensitivity and emotional intelligence while covering controversial stories. And then this is just like kind of screenshots of what I consider stories I'm most proud of. This is not like just this kind of stories I write. I've written about like fun stories too, but I think because this is where I had to talk to a lot of people that were either things that were either traumatic for them or things that that was kind of an issue that hit close to home. This is probably where I learned most to be sensitive and be careful with how I talk to people. And the last story there, that was actually the very first story I wrote when I joined the CT. Oh, also another note, but I am still writing stories even as editor, and I didn't go to sleep until like 4:30 this morning because I was actually at the GLC lawn protest. So if anyone knows anything about it that could help me write it, then please talk to me after this. It can be off the record. But yeah, just okay, so research, because I'm a liberal arts major, I don't really have like a research thing going on, but this is like kind of my final papers that I work on in my classes. The tags are missing, but on the left side, that's for my English lit class, but I don't know if anyone knows who John Milton is, but he was a poet from the 1600s, and he was known for writing Paradise Lost, which is basically a reimagining of, I guess, the creation of humanity, but from Satan's perspective. And I'm comparing this to Rosemary's Baby, which was written in the 1960s. And then for my political science class, I wrote a paper about El Salvador. So if you guys don't know, El Salvador used to be considered one of the most violent countries because of a strong gang presence. So my research question was, in the ongoing nationwide crackdown on gangs, to what extent have El Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele's methods become abusive human rights? Okay, so after graduation, my immediate plan is to go to South Korea. I'll be going to Seoul with a few of my closest friends. And this will be actually the first time I see my relatives since I was like a few months old. And I finally get to visit my grandparents' graves, which is kind of like a tradition in Korean culture. And I'll be there for about a month, but when I get back, I'll probably be taking a gap summer. Because right now, if I'm being honest, I'm trying to figure out what it is I want to do. Because as I mentioned before, I was kind of going down the journalism route. But this past winter break, I was actually in a conference where I learned about grassroots advocacy. So I basically went on Congress and spoke to staffers about issues affecting Korean Americans and Asian Americans in general. So I'm kind of deciding like which like route I want to go down. And also catch up on sleep because I'm very sleep deprived. Okay, so lessons learned advice. I think the lessons I learned were more about personal growth. I learned that I'm very resilient because probably a lot more happened to me in college than in high school and really back at home, especially because I've been away from family and on my own. And I also learned that I actually have good judgment because at Tech I've held a lot of leadership positions, which has made me have to make more hard decisions. And I think I'm a person who's worth standing up for. When I was a kid, I was very timid and I had a problem with like speaking up for myself. But with the newspaper and everything, like I've gotten yelled at, I've gotten insulted for the things I write about. And so I think I've learned to just kind of have a tough shell. And my advice is just to get involved. I think that's really the best way to get to know tech. And that's how I found a lot of my closest friends. That's where I discovered things I was interested in. And it can definitely help with your professional development. And second piece of advice, just be humble. Honestly, I messed up more in college than I ever did, like when I was a teenager or anything. So learning from my mistakes, taking accountability, I think is something that everyone needs to learn about. And get to know people, because I hate clicks. Last piece of advice, stand firm in what you believe in. But also listen to people who don't agree with you because I think from Nova, like we're all in our own bubbles. So when I came to Blacksburg, I saw that people were more diverse than I thought. And that's it.
We can, I'm gonna have Sharon go first so that I can pull up your slide. If that's okay. Sharon, do you mind going next?
Yeah, I didn't make any slides,
You're fine.
so I apologize. But yeah. So basically when I got admitted to tech, I it was 2019. So I was, one of the COVID kids. And I did join undecided, and obviously, like my parents were very pushy about like what are you gonna do? What major are you gonna choose and things like that. And I was like still kind of going with the flow because I knew that um being undecided was really good for me because I was able to like, I guess, explore different classes that I was interested in, and based on that, I could make a decision on which major to choose. And then, so freshman year went by, and then COVID hit, and then sophomore year comes by, and I had to choose my classes, and tech put a pause. Like they didn't let me, like they basically said like you're not allowed like to start classes because you have too many credits. And so at this point, this was like 3 days before classes had started. So I was like panicking, and then I started like going through like the majors list, and I was like, okay, what will make my parents happy, but what will also make me happy? And then I was like, okay, my parents definitely want me to make money. Like that's all they care about. And I was like, okay, I but I want but I want to like make a change in the world and I want to help people. So how can those two things like intersect and like interweave? And I was like, everyone loves food. And food like is something that everyone can connect over and everyone bonds over. And food is something that is very crucial to the world. And so that's how I got into international trade and development. And I haven't like looked back since. And it's also economics. So there's the money aspect and the food aspect. And luckily they were combined. And then my minors are sort of what like really also fulfilled me because without them, I wouldn't, everything that I do, I always put a twist on like my major projects with my minors and try to see it from a really like global and like feminist perspective, if that makes any sense, to make sure that I'm inclusive of everyone. Um, but yeah, and then so another thing, a couple challenges I've had are that I have quite a lot of things. So um I started out with an invisible disability. So I started out with epilepsy and but not like any grand mal seizures, more like myoclonic epilepsy. So when you get jerks basically. And um then I started getting tremors and it was like really weird because you don't get tremors when you have epilepsy. And then I wasn't able to like walk on like the sidewalk properly. I wasn't able to walk on grass without falling. I wasn't able to walk on the sand. Um, I had really bad depth perception issues, and then I started stuttering. So I had to use a cane my junior year. And I also had to take a gap year in 2020. Do you remember when I took a gap year?
2020, 2021?
2020, I think it was 2021. Sorry, my memory is really bad. 2021, I believe it would have been my junior year. 2021. Yeah. So like right the year when people were allowed to come back to school after COVID, like in person. So that year I had to take a gap year for my health. And we went to India and we discovered that I had a genetic disorder and it was really rare. And it was called sialidosis type 1. And um, basically from that, I have the symptoms are a cherry red spot in your eye, ataxia, which is like gait issues, like the way you walk, and epilepsy. And so now everyone in my family is confused on what to do. They don't want me to go to tech. They want me to go to Mason, which is closer to home or online. Everyone is in like shambles, right? Like because someone has died at 40 and then they're really struggling. Like I cannot walk to the restroom on my own. I need someone to like be in the bathroom with me while I shower. Like so many things have changed. Like I used to be able to ski and all these things, right? So it's just a very like turbulent time for everyone. And I really wanted to get my degree here and finish it off here. So I was really pushy. Like I said, I'm a triple Taurus. So I was like, we have to go. Like, we're going. Y'all did not move all the way here for me not to get a good degree. So I moved here. And my mom set it up Medicaid for me. And I have 3 caretakers all the time. So if you hear any noise in the background, it's her. And so my first semester of my junior year, like coming back in person when no one had to wear masks, I was using a cane, like a walking cane. And I really like quickly discovered how inaccessible this campus was. Like there were no push buttons anywhere. You really had to like you it's just it's horrible. It is absolutely obscene. And like just there are the doors are really heavy, and I could go on and on about how inaccessible like this campus is. There's just no signage anywhere, things like that. So it's very scary. And I also lost like 40 pounds like that year, like 22 to 23 school year. And my mom came and she decided to live with me. She was like, this is crazy. I don't know what you're doing. Like you're falling a lot. And you're like, this is not okay. So I don't know if any of you have ever lived with your mom during your college experience, but it's very, very life-changing. Yeah, she actually like lives in the room next door, and I live at the Union, and y'all know how expensive like the Union rates are. So we had like management, or not management, we had maintenance like come in, and she was like sleeping on the couch or on the floor or whatever. And they were like, what are you doing? Like, we'll just unlock the rooms for you. And so thank God, they unlocked all the rooms for us. And she was able to sleep on a bed. And then she really helped me out. She was like, all right, you gotta eat, you gotta eat, you gotta eat. Um, and she made sure like all the girls were on time, and like was on top of like the Medicaid schedule and things like there's so many like different multiplicities when it comes to like disabilities and like fighting for rights on campus as well, because a lot of professors don't understand. Uh, SSD doesn't even understand like they understand to a certain point. Um, so like yeah, I was denied a lot of opportunities on campus, but that never stopped me from trying. I am in a multicultural sorority. I'm in Sigma Psi Zeta. Like I think I'm the only like visibly disabled person in FSL and UCFS. I'm 100, I know that there are other invisible disabilities, but it is really cool to, you know, be that one person. And yet people forget like to include accessibility in events when I'm coming, which is very unfortunate. But anyway, that's my little thing about FSL. But other than that, I used to be in a student government association. So I knew that I did want to write like policy before student government turned into USS. And now I'm in the Student Life Council, which consists of like 15 students, and we work with the Dean of Student Affairs, so Mark Sykes, and Francis Keene, the VP of Student Affairs. And we basically tell them like all the student concerns on campus. Um, so like Title IX concerns, definitely accessibility, construction. We go to town gown, we talk to the citizens of Blacksburg, and we hear out their concerns as well. So things like that. Um, and yeah, so my mom has been a really good support as well. Even like we do get into fights, yes, but she has also had a tough time. It is like a roommate, actually, like she is like a roommate. Because she's going through a divorce, so I get to hear all of that drama. And she never drank before this, but now she'll like drink like a glass of wine with me every so often, which is nice. Um, and then she has seen me completely and utterly wasted, which is very fun. Um, so yeah, and she's like friends with all of my friends, and my friends, I think, love her more than me, but that's okay. And then, what else have I done? Oh, I'm an SSD peer mentor. Um, yeah, I did a lot for Sigma, but that's, yeah, I don't think I could list all of that. And then, because
Oh,
of
one more minute. One more minute.
since freshman year. So after this, I'm applying to grad schools right now. And then, um, yeah, that's about it. But my advice to you is that there will be obstacles in the way, and to always say, like, to like, there will always be mean people. Um, but there will always be community, and you just have to like find it, unfortunately. Um, like find it in the weirdest possible ways, whether it's Facebook or uh, I don't know, posting online, um, or through clubs and organizations. Definitely what everyone else was saying. Just put yourself out there. Um, or whether it's your mom moving in, like, yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Jim, you're next. Let's do that. All right.
Okay, so yeah, this is my experience at Virginia Tech. Apologies if it's very surface level. Kind of finished this presentation like 10 minutes ago, but we can go to the next slide. So that's me. My name is Tuajin Chorjasur, and I use he, him pronouns. I'll be graduating next Saturday with a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and a National Security option. Just like a lot of us, I'm from Fairfax, Virginia, went to Fairfax High School. Fun fact, I've never broken a bone. And then another fun fact, these two people on my left are my younger brother's friends. Here to annoy me, but we can go to the next slide. So these are my affiliations I've had under AASU. So Korean American Student Association, also known as CASA. I've been the culture show chair for the 2021-22 school year. The last school year, I was president. And then I'm also active members of Chinese American Society, Vietnamese Students Association, and VT Shire. They're all wonderful, wonderful, very nice organizations. I recommend everyone to give it a shot if y'all are not familiar with them. But we can go to the next slide as well. And then just something I've been working on. So like Jane said, liberal arts students don't really work on like a year-long senior capstone type project, but I thought it would be a good opportunity to present what I'm working on for my senior seminar class, Diplomacy and Security. It focuses on the history and future of the NATO alliance, which is a very interesting alliance, I've come to learn. But anyways, I just have to write a term paper about like the history of Soviet Russian interventions throughout the Cold War and throughout the 90s, right after the Cold War ended, and how they tried to undermine NATO and how NATO kind of screwed over Russia. But anyways, it's a very multifaceted topic. I guess growing up in America, you have that lens of like, oh, America is like the guarantor of world freedom and democracy and such, but there's more to it. There's a lot of stuff that was kind of stuffed under the carpet, and once you lift up that carpet, there's a whole list of things the United States did throughout world history that's kind of questionable, makes you rethink about that perspective you have had growing up. Like, was it really right for the US to intervene in the Iranian Revolution, even though it was the popular government that had a great internal legitimacy and such? And here we are now debating if we're going to go into World War III with Iran. So it's a lot. But we can go to the next slide. So experiences that influenced my journey here at Virginia Tech. So I've come to learn overall, and there's a lot of examples under these 2 points. Time management between your academic, social life, work, extracurricular activities is a very delicate art. You have to find the right balance because, you know, if you put too much on your plate, you're just gonna, you won't sleep. I learned it the hard way this past semester. You can see here, that's me with Senator Warner. I interned for him in his Roanoke office this semester. And I also, like I mentioned earlier, a member of those Asian boards, and then also taking 18 credits and everything. It was, especially your graduating semester, was a really bad idea. It's like, when I applied for the internship, I wasn't expecting to get it, but somehow I got it. And then on the last, like the second week of the semester, I spoke to my advisor about it, and then she all of a sudden started interrogating me, like, how many hours are you working? Like, who's it with? Where is it? And I was just like confused, like, is she against it? What's going on? And I asked her why, like, why are you asking so many questions about it? She said, you can get academic credit for that and don't have to take that senior seminar class that I just talked about. And I was like, oh my gosh. And that was on the last day, and it was like 4 p.m. and everything's about to close at 5 p.m. So, and like, we took a look at the process to get the credits for it. I had to get like a bunch of references, and I already screwed over Dr. Nina by getting the letter of recommendation for Senator Warner's office. So I didn't want to do that to her again. So I just kind of bit the bullet. You know what? I'll stick it out. If I have to switch out of class, take an easier one, I'll guess I'll do that. But I wrote it out. Regret it a lot. I really cherish my sleep. But this semester, I think I averaged about 3 to 4 hours each night, which was not fun. And then that senior seminar class, it meets twice a week. We read close to about 200 pages of articles and such per week. Finished an entire book this thick within like 3 weeks, which I've never done before and didn't know I could do that, but I won't do it again. So yeah, just all of that. And then it's like being a part of like the Asian orgs and everything, serving in leadership roles. Don't stretch yourself thin. If you know it's going to stretch yourself thin, don't do it. But if you want to give it a shot, just don't do it your last semester of school. And then another thing I've realized that are really important as a student is just being transparent and constantly communicating, especially with your professors when you're like not yourself, you're kind of in a low spot, because they will understand. They're people too. If they're not so nice, I mean, you tried, you know what they're like as a person. I guess from there you can learn that you won't take their class again after that. But I kind of learned this the hard way last semester. It was around Labor Day week, so it was quite like right into the school year. I had a friend who took his own life, unfortunately, and that just kind of threw everything off balance, you know. It was a very dark time for me, if I'm going to be honest. I kind of fell into this dark spot, didn't know what I was doing, kind of made me reconsider everything and just like the whole like perspective on life. And I just kind of went dark. Like I just kind of got lazy with academics, gave up on doing assignments. And then I learned it the hard way because one of my professors, it's actually the same one as my senior seminar. I took his nuclear strategy and politics class last semester. He kind of checked in on me. I hadn't turned in my midterm essay. He said, hey, by the way, you haven't turned it in yet. You can still turn it in for partial credit. And I said, oh, okay, thanks, I'll have it in soon. I did not have it in soon. So I had to like meet up with them separately, discuss a plan on how I can still get through this class with at least a passing grade. Luckily, he was very accommodating and flexible, but I think from all of that, I really learned the importance of communicating, not just with your professors, but just everyone around you, especially when you need that extra boost to just get through day by day. Um, yeah, just always let them know if you'd like accommodations. I'm pretty sure they'll say yes. If they don't, at least you know what they're like as a person. But you have friends around you, you most likely have a support system. I'm pretty sure they can help you out. But yeah, so those are the two main things that I really learned through the hard way, unfortunately. But time management and communication, I think, are really two important experiences that influenced me as a student. Go to the next slide. And then just some experiences as a VT student, as like someone of APIDA descent. I think so I joined or started school here at Tech in 2020, August 2020. So everything was on Zoom, everything was online, couldn't really do stuff in person, couldn't have more than 3 people in your dorm room. Masks everywhere, indoor and outside. Outside, like thinking about it now, I cannot imagine myself wearing a mask outside. I don't know how we did that our first year. But it was a pretty rough transition period. Just like being stuck at home with fairly strict parents. Um, and it's like all of us, it was like a very big shift. And I think joining the organizations under AASU, like the ones I mentioned earlier, especially at a PWI, just really made me feel at home. Like still like having like people around you who had the same upbringing, same background, and just the same like perspectives on life, just really made me feel at home at least. You know, it's also like the Asian org community is very small when you look at it compared to as a whole. But it's also a really diverse community, so you're definitely going to find your people and you're going to find them really fast. And there's also a lot of ways like that will be given to you to find those people, like through your Big Little program that like the orgs have like 2 weeks, 3 weeks of just like events, they back to back to back for you to attend and find your people. Also culture shows are a really big deal as well. I think those are really fun, good trauma bonding activities. And then seeing it all unfold in the end with one big show. It's really fun. And we can go to this. And then what I'm doing after graduation, so I'm going to be unemployed for the summer. I don't plan to seek employment until August and hopefully start my career on Capitol Hill. I'm also going to be the internal vice president for the Mid-Atlantic Union of Vietnamese Student Associations for the 24-25 term. So I think that'll be just as much fun because I'll still be connected with Virginia Tech VSA and then the other VSAs in the Mid-Atlantic region. Some just, yeah, it's just another way to like find new people, find your community and such. But yeah, that's what I'll be doing after I graduate. Go to the next slide. And then my advice for anyone really, don't be afraid to try new things. Like I said, I'm going to be the IVP for mobs. That's a very new thing for me. I just joined that community last year and I just got elected yesterday actually. But oh, but yeah, just don't be afraid to try new things. Second, I know it's a big school, but like I said, you'll find your people, your friends, your support system very, very fast. Third, time management's very important. Like I said, you don't want to stretch yourself thin. And then lastly, I just want to leave off with a note that you're not alone. Like Ruby said, imposter syndrome can really get to you. I've definitely had those moments, but you know, and then just tying back to the communications part, if you just like confide in a friend, I'm sure like they'll be more than happy to help you out. And you'll quickly realize that you're not alone in this journey. Everyone's going through something, so it's okay to not be okay. But I just want to leave off with that.
I know we're running out of time, but I really did want, there's gonna be 3 more speakers, so if you can hold off ongoing until maybe 1:15. Hopefully that's okay with some people. If you gotta go.
We have it until.
Oh, we haven't. Oh, good. See, and I thought it was just, okay, good, cool. Oh, I didn't have to rush you, sorry. My bad.
So you're all good.
My bad. Okay, Eugenia, you're next.
Yes, okay. Hi guys. Sorry, I don't have my camera on because I've been out of town this weekend and I was driving down since like 7 a.m. this morning. So I look a little busted. So not showing my face because of that. But yeah, my name is Eugenia Yee. I introduced myself earlier. I go by she, her, hers. I'm graduating with a BS in psychology next week. I am from Lorton, Virginia. Um, some like APIDA affiliations that I have with Virginia Tech is I am in AKD5, which is an Asian interest sorority here at Tech. And I joined my freshman year. I started a lot of like kind of like the more basic cabinet positions on an AKD5, so like sisterhood, Asian awareness, PR. And then my sophomore year I served as vice president internal, and then last year when I was a junior, I served as president. And I also served in AASU in the PR committee my sophomore year, so the same time as I was vice president internal. If you have ever seen, like I think Courtney was wearing it. If you were at elections and you saw the shirt Courtney was wearing, apparently she was wearing the shirt that I designed. It's like a black shirt with like wavy blue letters. That's my proudest accomplishment from being
I wear it
PR
all
basically. I feel like I ate low key with that one. That's like the
day.
best thing I've ever done
Oh,
with any sort
good.
of PR thing. Thank you. Okay, so basically to talk a little bit about like my like I guess like projects that kind of encapsulate my academic career. I wouldn't say this encapsulates it honestly though, but it was just like one of my favorite I guess like classes that I've taken, and I think it kind of talks a lot about like the science community in general. But for my senior seminar in the fall semester, I took our senior seminar was centering around like communicating in science to the general public, because communication is like a two-way street, and for the STEM community that can kind of be like a hard concept to grasp. So there's a lot of academic papers that write with like jargon and technicalities that like a quote unquote like normal person without a STEM background can't read or understand. Yet the science community like they paints the general public to be insistently ignorant and uneducated. But like that might remain true for like some people. We should also understand that the public does want to learn, but sometimes just don't have the right resources to understand articles and academic papers that are released. So as STEM members, we should try to do our part to find ways to communicate science in an effective manner that can be reached to the general public, and make it so that they can understand and are not continued to be misinformed. So for the final project in this class, we had to present a topic in psychology to either a group of grade students. The age varied a lot. It could be like second graders all the way to sixth graders, or you could also present to a group of elderly people. My group presented to elderly people, and we chose to talk about how your reaction to sour foods can actually be a sign on if you're an introvert or extrovert. It was really interesting, but this was like an interesting project because presenting to elderly people is like harder than you think, because like they might be suffering from like dementia and stuff, and just like they also like are, some of them are a little senile, like they'll interrupt you like while you're speaking as well, like when you're presenting they'll like be like, that's not what I learned and stuff like that, and you have to be really patient with them. And our group of people, like they didn't even know what being an extrovert or introvert was, which like some people might think that's like kind of like a basic like psychological thing to know, but it like just a lot of people don't really know what extroversion or introversion is. So for this project we really had to explain to them every aspect of our project in detail to give them like that framework to understand our topic, and they ended up loving our project and they gave us great feedback. But I think I learned a lot from this class that I don't think, or this seminar that I don't think any other class can really offer. because we're learning more like core supplementary like information, but this was just like I feel like an all-rounder, like you can kind of take this into account in like no matter what field you're in. But yeah, that's like a little bit about what I enjoyed studying at Tech. And then I guess in general, like being an APIDAHM member at Virginia Tech allowed me to just be involved with organizations here at Tech and just get me out of my comfort zone to socialize with people, to find my community that can overall just elevate my experience at Virginia Tech through cultural engagement. I've always been kind of involved with Asian organizations. Like in high school, I was also president of our Korean Student Association. So since like high school, I know that like when I joined college, I would really want to be involved with Asian organizations. But I think Virginia Tech has such like a wide variety of them, and they all like are so nice, and like joining them has their own perks. Like you'll meet so many different kinds of people, while also like again like engaging in cultural activities. Um, but yeah, um, some things that I learned, I guess, about myself while kind of being at Virginia Tech is that I kind of have a weird social battery where I hate going out, but if I do go out, I have a lot of fun. So I end up promising people that I'll go out again while I'm out with them, and then I kind of regret it the next day. But I guess I've changed like a lot since my freshman year, because I feel like in my freshman year I was like a really big extrovert, but now I'm a really, really big introvert. I like to stay at home a lot, and I have a cat. I just like to play with her a lot. But I also have developed my organizational skills and kind of what works for me in order to get all of my work done in a timely manner, even accommodating the fact that like I'm a big procrastinator. I use Notion a lot. That's kind of how last year I was able to balance like being president of AKD school, and then I was also working part-time at my bakery for like 28 hours a week too, on top of that. So Notion was a huge like like factor to being able to do all of that, I guess. Um, and it also helped me budget like my finances and stuff. I highly recommend that. But yeah, all of my experiences, like I feel like all of my professional development skills are attributed to being like in like officer positions at like Tech. So I guess like one of my advice that I would say is like, yeah, like join the like clubs that you're in, join all these clubs, but also if you can and you have the time, like be an officer, because yeah, you can learn like all of your like all these knowledge and like information in class, but all like these soft skills with like interpersonal connection, relationships, like event coordination, just like things you didn't think you would need to know maybe, or like haven't developed, you can develop them with an officer position. AASU is great. Like I feel like it, since AASU works really closely with the A Center, you kind of have a lot of like um I don't know, like a lot of collaboration work as well. So I feel like I learned a lot from the AASU that I probably would not have learned in AKD. So doing like different clubs and being officers in different clubs, I like highly recommend if you have the time. And but also at the same time, like you want to pace yourself out. Like yeah, do all of that, but pace yourself out and kind of learn what does work best for you. Um, because I definitely stacked myself a lot last year, junior year. Like I was doing, I maybe even sophomore year. But I kind of did get burnt out a lot. It was like kind of like challenging to have to go through burnout, because I feel like in high school I didn't really go through burnout. I was just tired all the time, but it wasn't necessarily burnout. But in college, I think I truly learned what burnout was, because I really wanted to do well in all of these positions, and I really wanted to exhibit like all of my skills and all of like these projects. But like sometimes it just doesn't, like, it's not going to work out if you like keep overextending yourself. You're going to end up burning yourself out, and then once that happens, all that kind of goes to waste, because you'll start working at a minimal level. My other advice is, I guess like for people who are like graduate next year or juniors right now, like really try to stay locked in for senior year. It's really hard. It's harder than you would think. I know people know about senioritis, but it's actually really, really hard. Trying to stay locked in for senior year. Like last semester I did pretty okay with it, but sometimes I still got into the, oh, I'm a senior, like why does it matter kind of mindset. But this semester is definitely a big struggle, but try to stay locked in for school, and also at the same time try to have fun and enjoy your last year at Tech. There are a lot of like events and resources in Blacksburg, and I kind of wish that I took a little bit more advantage of like what's in Blacksburg, because I know like this like Blacksburg, like a lot of, especially from Nova, it doesn't seem like there's a lot here. But if you really like, the community is great. Like the locals do so many events. There's even, I didn't know this, but there's a fresh meat market near where like the Han Horticulture Garden is. I just learned that today, like on the car ride here. I learned that today. But there's like a lot of stuff like that, really, really cool local markets, and like there's even like an YMCA art market that happens like annually in October that my big took me to, and it's huge. It's a huge market of like just like arts and crafts. But looking into that is really, I highly recommend doing that and being able to go with your friends. I think it elevates the like experience at Tech, because one huge thing about Blacksburg and Christiansburg is that the local community is like very endearing, and like they kind of all know each other and they're kind of very welcoming. I know like it can be kind of hard to want to be involved with the local community as like like a POC member. Sometimes it's kind of like intimidating. I know I was a little intimidated because I remember when I first got to Blacksburg, I felt like I was getting a bit of weird stares from like locals because like, being Asian, I guess. But they are very, very nice. And like when you go to these markets, they're very welcoming, and like they really want to get to know like Virginia Tech students too. And I remember like my big and I went to go to one of the markets, and there was this lady who like makes like these little scrapbooks that you can like write in, but they're very personalized, and like she has like different themes for each scrapbook. They're like very beautiful too. And my big and I were just going on about how like pretty they were, and she started crying literally, and she was like, oh my gosh, you guys are so sweet, like and she really wanted to get to know us. And she was just like this middle-aged like lady just like kind of selling her books. But yeah, I would just recommend, if you can, if you have the time, to look into the events and resources. We have like, especially we have a lot of good wineries and breweries. Like take advantage of being in kind of a rural area. But yeah, I would end it there.
Thank you. Mohammed,
Yeah.
can you introduce yourself, your pronouns, your major and minor, and all the things? Awesome.
All right, I do not have slides, but I did read some of the information beforehand. So my name is Mohammed Abu Ajaj. I am a computational modeling and data analytics major, basically CMDA, data science, I don't know. I'm getting a minor in statistics, math, and computer science. And my pronouns are he, him. So I think that the best way to start off this conversation is talking about some of the work that I've done during my senior year. So I always ended up being in situations that I did not expect in, because oftentimes I always dream and have an ideal outcome of how certain things will go. And pretty much all the time, it's never what I envisioned. So I started out this year begging Dr. Ha and Teresa to let me work for them after I rejected their initial offer because I wanted to do neuroscience research as someone who switched out of neuroscience a while ago. But taking that decision and that initiative really helped me out because I got to experience a lot of great things. And I think the best way to talk about some of my academics is to discuss the capstone class that I've been doing this semester. For the CMDA major, they like to throw a little capstone class where you meet with a client who's either someone who works for BT or someone who works for the state or a private company. And I ended up working with a state agency, VA 811, where their goal is just letting utility companies know where to mark down their lines before any digging project can begin. And the preface definitely sounded pretty boring, but the undermining, the things that you would learn from this process are so enriching. And basically over the semester, I've accumulated the knowledge necessary to sort of delve into operations research, which is actually a part of data science that is not really talked about that much in the CMDA department. So through some external guidance with my sponsor and someone else who used to also teach the capstone classes, I got to basically learn about a very common application of deciding how to optimize decision making and being able to find the right data to allow you to create such sophisticated model that lets you do the decision that it should do. But the biggest thing I learned about my project is things are never going to go as you expected. I had a very ideal vision for how things will go, but the more I dug into the data, the more things that I realized that were missing. And as the more I learned about the project, the more my goals, and as a team as well, our goals changed about it. So the end product that we have now is, I mean, I like it, but it certainly could have been a lot better, but that's just due to my nature of always wanting to do better, do better, do better. But it's been a really fun class that taught me a lot about working with people, being able to understand how other people work, and being able to use the best of each other and play into your key strengths rather than point out your weaknesses. So that's a little bit about some of the academic stuff that I've done this year. And to go back to what Eugenia said, senioritis definitely kicks in, especially spring semester of your senior year. So do watch out for that. But the next thing I would like to talk about is my experience working for the APIDA Plus Center. It's been a pretty short, just 1 year of working here, but I feel like I've learned so much about others and so much about myself. And I've always had the notion that I should be doing things alone due to the clashing of my queer Palestinian identity. I kind of just assumed that I have to do everything solo. But being here really taught me that you don't have to be alone at all times, and you can always find a new sense of community. And in particular, you know, I enjoyed being able to go to a lot of the art shows and the concerts that the APIDA Plus Center helped host, because I got to use some of the, I guess, the humanities in me, the interest that I have in humanities, to really explore how history and how my emotions are correlated with history. Basically, I didn't expect to start crying over a music video about Coca-Cola in Philippines, but man, was I bawling that time. It's the No No Boy Show. That was definitely my favorite performance ever. But the best thing that I've learned is that there's a lot of parallels that make us human, and even from vastly different cultures, there's just so much overlap that you end up just appreciating little differences we all have. And being able to acknowledge such minute differences really allows you to enjoy the little things in life. And I believe that the next thing I can talk about is what I've learned about myself while at VT. So first thing I've learned is don't start school at 17. Second thing I've learned is don't graduate at 20. I can't go to any bars. I can't go to any breweries. Kind of blows, but it's all right. But really, though, I learned that it's so the thing that I've learned over my experience at VT is that it's okay to be alone, but you don't have to be alone. I remember when I was 17, getting ready to move to Blacksburg, I had this notion that, like, yeah, now that I can just move away from my parents, I'm going to be this really strong person who can do all queer stuff and be able to just queer out my entire life. And then I see my brother start crying as he's dropping me off from my dorm. And then I just spend the rest of the night crying, because it hit to me that these are my parents. This is my family. I'm leaving them. So over time in college, I learned to appreciate the little things, and I learned never to kind of keep up ideas and emotions in my head. I was able to reconcile a lot of relationships that I've had with my parents. And honestly, now I feel like I've been so attached to them more than ever by understanding them as an adult and seeing my life through their eyes. And another thing about my evolution here is that you should always at least get yourself physically involved. Some type of activity, some type of hobby. It's so important to be able to just put yourself out there and be able to do something that is not looking at screens, typing stuff, filling out emails and all that good stuff. You know, for me, I found fencing as a great outlet. It's very expensive, but gosh, I just keep coming back to it because it's super fun. Being able to go to competitions, meet so many people that create the tight-knit Virginia fencing community, and learning how to be patient and how to have resolve really helps a lot. So I guess the last thing I'd want to give to people here who are graduating is that cherish the little things in your life and reach out to help if you need it. It's always okay to reach out to help, and also like adopt a pet. They're great. Anywho, that was a little bit about me. I'm graduating next Friday. Still don't believe it. I'll be working as an engineer. Still don't believe it, but hopefully I'll be able to somehow find my way back into grad school, because I just feel like I didn't learn enough in those 3 years. Thank you guys.
We have one more person. So I want to bring to the table. Come to the table.
I would like to start by just saying, sorry, my voice is a little bit hoarse. I was at the GLC last night, so. You know,
Introduce yourself to.
all right, my name is Hugo Carranza. I am a senior in mechanical engineering. I actually work for El Centro. Actually, the reason I was able to find El Centro and my community was through Nina. I met her the end of my freshman year, I believe, and then she kind of introduced me to Veronica, who is El Centro's director, and then it just kind of happened from there. I'm actually super thankful for that, and I always like to just come out, support, advocate any way I can. A little bit. I go by he/him pronouns. At Virginia Tech, let's see what I did. I have a paper that will be online in 2 days in the American Chemical Society.
Okay.
That's pretty exciting. I've been working on that for about a year with my PhD student. Then I've just been finishing up with senior design and stuff. Let's see. What have I learned about myself? I've learned that nothing ever is easy. You always kind of like need to work for it, and when you have it, that's when you need to work the hardest. I definitely have felt that throughout the whole college experience, because it's like, oh, I'm right there near the end. This last senior year, I probably have worked the hardest. This past last week, I actually slept about 15 hours in total for the week. That was just to get all my projects done, and it was horrible. I was going through it, but I mean, you know, we got through it, so that's all that matters. So definitely get some sleep. No matter, even if you're like, oh, I had to like finish the project, just get some sleep, because at the end of the day, you shouldn't be going through that. Some advice I would give is for like graduating seniors or people who are like still in undergrad, don't forget who you are. Never forget where you came from, and just always remember your roots, because that way you can just truly stay humble. Because you know, you may like progress in the world, but like you don't gotta forget that past. Because I mean, that's who you truly are. Like how you grew up. You know, let's say, you know, you grew up in a like different state, than like now you're becoming an engineer. You know, you have money and all, but like just don't forget. I try to remind myself every single time, because it's like I have been given the opportunity from my parents, and I can't forget that they worked their asses off just to give you that opportunity. So I definitely have to say that. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Where are you going?
I will be going to Seattle, Washington for Boeing as an engineer this upcoming summer.
Forget where you're from. It really hit home here. That's the one thing that you always gotta remember. It took a lot of sacrifices to get here, so you can only be so lazy.
Thank you, everybody, who made it to the very
To the
end.
end.
Made it to the very end. I did want, we have time for one question for the graduating members. Anyone who wants to ask a question? Yes, no.
Remember that I'm not taking criticism still. so.
Is there,
Go ahead.
is there anything you feel like you change?
So seeing as I've been here for 6 years, first of all, I would not have I would have gone in undecided. When I was a freshman, I was like, we all these people who don't know what they're doing in their lives. Girl, I did not know what I was doing at age like 21. And I was like, oh crap. And so at least they got like their crap together like when they were 18, and I'm like drinking and not having my crap together. I'm like, so I would have definitely gone in undecided instead of undeclared engineering. I was a little too confident in myself in high school with engineering, and I didn't think that it was going to wreck me the way it did. So I think I should have been a little bit more conscientious of what other opportunities there were before I, like jumped the gun.
Jane.
I mean, this is not as insightful as Ruby's, but I was going to skip so many classes.
That's a valid one.
Yeah, I'd honestly, okay, because at first I was gonna talk about freshman year, but it'd probably be more accurate to talk about what remaining year you have left. Just take a deep breath. You sometimes it's like life hits you like a big club swinging at your head, but you sometimes just have to sit down and take a little breath before you get back up, because there's gonna be a lot of things that happen, whether they're good or bad, but most important thing is to just be graceful to yourself and be able to just keep pushing through. Yeah.
I would go back and advocate even more. Like, you feel like, my experiences, like, when I first came in this now, I'm like, I learned so much, and I'm like, when you start off, you can have that opportunity to advocate, like, right off the bat, you just need to talk with the people. So it kind of hurts me because it's like, I could have been advocating before then, up until now, so like. You don't really know that when you first come into college, so.
Eugenia? And
I think I mentioned it in my little thing, but I just wish I had kind of learned a little bit more about the events and resources and kind of taken advantage of that when I was here.
thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Now I'm really retired. I love it.